Hello, welcome to another episode of Prelude to Positivity. My guest today is actor, writer, one-man show star, advocate, and producer George Steeves. George, how are you?
Very well. Yourself?
I'm good. Hanging in there, hanging in there.
I think we all are at this point,
Uh,
right?
we're at the finish line of the year, but not the finish line of the stuff. I think the finish line of the stuff off year bad. 20 bed. So I want you to, you usually do when it's not a pandemic, what's going on with you?
Well, currently I'm self-quarantining in Las Vegas. I'm writing my new one-man show, which I hope to premiere in 2021, even if it's digitally. They just sent us a email at the Hollywood Fringe Festival saying the 2021 Fringe will definitely be happening, even if it's virtual.
Okay, well that's good. That's good to know. Perfect. And so what are some of the shows that you've been on? Because I know you've had roles in things on network television.
Oh yeah, last year I was a guest star on NCIS Los Angeles, and
Little show.
and right before that I did an independent feature that was called Penciltown. It has now been retitled to Saving Paradise, and hopefully that'll be out by next year.
Cool. Now, one of the things I had said in the intro was that you're an advocate, and
Yes.
you're an advocate for people on the spectrum.
Yes.
You want to talk about that a little bit? What does it mean to be on the spectrum, and what does that encompass?
Well, being an advocate for me was just something that kind of evolved naturally. I did my one-man show, Magic 8 Ball, My Life with Asperger's. I started performing it in 2017 at the Hollywood Fringe Festival. And then I took it to New York. I took it to Edinburgh Fringe in Scotland. And it was just a really rewarding experience overall because I got to meet so many other people on the spectrum. I got to meet mothers and fathers of children on the spectrum. And I think it's very rewarding. I did a show in Thousand Oaks, and I had a mother come up to me practically sobbing, saying, "My son is 30 years old. He has Asperger's. You told his story. Thank you so much."
Cool. But now, because of the pandemic, that was pretty much put on hold for a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
I was originally going to premiere my brand new one-man show this year at the Hollywood Fringe Festival in June of 2020, but obviously they initially said we're going to postpone it till October and see where we're at. But by the time we got to the summer, we were like, we're not going to be going back to normal anytime soon.
And speaking of the pandemic, how have you been dealing with it and staying safe and healthy?
Well, obviously, I feel like Dr. Fauci deserves a medal for this year. He's the only person in the press and the media who I trusted. And during this whole crisis we were in, he was the only person I trusted. So obviously I took all the precautions. Every time I walk outside, I put on a mask. I socially distance. If I'm going to do a gathering, I try really hard to not go to any gathering that has more than 10 people, and I try to keep my distance even at a small gathering. And it's definitely had its challenges. I mean, people ask me all the time, are you an introvert or an extrovert? And I go, well, I'm actually both. You know, I love being out. I love going to bars. I love being with the people. I love being around friends. But then I love having those moments where I am by myself. So during 2020, the introvert in me was okay with all of this, but the extrovert in me really struggled with this.
But now, can we talk about people that are on the spectrum? So was it different for people on the spectrum? Maybe not you necessarily, but for other people on the spectrum. Was this different for them than it would be for people not on the spectrum?
Well, for people on the spectrum who are introverted, this was okay. I mean, you know, I think the joke is, you know, we were all socially distancing before that was even a thing.
Right.
However, unfortunately, there have been some sad stories that I've come across online. Unfortunately, there was a poor girl who took her own life because she was so used to her routine and things being a certain way that when this pandemic started to happen, she just couldn't take all the change. And it was way too much for her. It was way too overwhelming for her. So unfortunately, she took her own life.
That's a shame. And that's another important point is some of the people that are on the spectrum live by their routine. And
Yeah,
if one thing changes, this is just not cool at all.
and some people, unfortunately, this year just couldn't handle that.
Which meant that they might not be able to see certain people that they did get used to seeing, right? And then doing certain things that they were used to doing, like maybe even just going grocery shopping, and they can't do that anymore.
Right.
That's a shame. But what has been keeping you personally sane during this whole thing?
Well, insight that my show didn't premiere this year because it would have been really rushed.
That's a
I
good
mean,
point.
I had only started working on it in the fall of 2019, and I was just workshopping it and putting ideas together, and I would have had to rush it, and it wouldn't have been as good as it is now. So mainly, it's been a lot of writing. I did go back to work at Domino's Pizza for a couple of months because I was working as an Uber and Lyft driver in between acting jobs, but obviously nobody's going anywhere, stay-at-home orders. So my Uber Lyft earnings drastically dried up. So I had to figure out, okay, what am I going to do about my finances? And luckily there was a Domino's down the street from my house, which I joined. And I started working there. So that kept income coming in because obviously I wasn't going to be acting anytime soon and I wasn't going to be giving half as many Uber or Lyft rides. And I caught up on a ton of movies that I missed from 2019. I was so busy working and traveling in 2019 that I missed so many movies. So I just started making trips to Redbox and renting DVDs and watching all the movies that I had missed in 2019. I love Redbox because it's the closest thing we have to a Blockbuster now.
I know, such a shame. If you don't have cable, then you're pretty much.
I miss the event of going to a Blockbuster and picking up the movie and taking it home with you. I miss that event.
And having to make the decision right there and then because that's what you're watching tonight. You can't change your mind when you get home.
No. And I caught up on a lot of things.
So basically, like you use the gift of time to do all these things. Cool. What did you catch up with? What movies were you watching?
Oh my God, so many. I missed so many in 2019. I missed Frozen 2. I missed Knives Out. I missed Last Christmas, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, Ready or Not. Just so many things I had missed that I was curious about. Even stuff that I heard wasn't good that I was still curious about, like Stuber with Kumail Nanjiani. So many things. I was just like, okay, I really didn't go to the movies that much in 2019. So let me catch up on everything that I missed.
Cool. Well, that's good. I mean, that is a good point too. Like sometimes when you don't have time, you don't necessarily venture to do the show that everybody's saying don't watch or the movie everybody says don't watch. You're like, yeah, I'm not going to watch it. But you had plenty of time to check it out and see for yourself whether or not your taste matches their taste. Because sometimes
the most recent remake of Black Christmas that Blumhouse did. I mean, just so many things where I was like, okay, stuff that I was even curious about, I rented.
Cool. That's definitely good. That's a good use of time for sure. So I want to know with all of that and all of the whole year now that you've had this time, have you figured out what you're most passionate about during all this?
Well, all I want is to be on a set again. That's been one of the saddest things about this year for me is after doing 2 consecutive jobs back to back as an actor, where I was finally a working actor and I broke through the glass ceiling of working actor, and then just to have it all taken away from you. That was the toughest thing for me this year. So all I want is to be on a set again.
Were you on any sets during pandemic time? Or
no, I was just auditioning for projects. I had an audition for a Amy Schumer series on Hulu called Love, Beth, but obviously that got postponed. And every single audition I've had for the year of 2020 has been a self-tape audition.
Does that make it a little bit easier?
Well, it does, because, then I can do as many takes as I want before I get it right. Um, and then luckily my friend Jeremy and his roommate Michael have an amazing on-camera audition service that they have set up in their apartment. So I can just set up an appointment with them. They have been such lifesavers.
Wonderful. And so what you do, all the things you do, the writing, the producing the show on your own, being an advocate, being on sets, what's the most fulfilling part about all of that for you?
I wanted to be an actor ever since I was a kid. That's been my life's dream. There was a groundbreaking, earth-shattering movie that came out in 1994 called The Little Rascals.
Oh, wow.
That made me want to be an actor. I wish it was something like more serious and in-depth, but I was just a kid who watched that movie and was like, hey, I want to be in movies. And also, if it wasn't for movies or television, I wouldn't have even started talking in the first place.
Oh.
I mean, there was a period when I was 3 years old where, as you saw from my one-man show, where people would ask me questions and all I could say was Cinderella, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty. I mean, that should have been an early indicator that I wasn't going to be straight, but
the interest.
but yeah, if it wasn't for Disney movies, I wouldn't have even started talking. And so movies and television were like my gateway to connecting with the world. And then obviously music, I'm a musician. I taught myself how to sing when I was a little kid by matching pitch with any singer who I heard on the radio or on a CD or cassette, because those were still around when I was a kid. Had plenty of those.
Nobody knows those anymore.
I know. I'm starting to feel like old now when people don't know what CDs or cassettes are. Or I was watching cable in my hotel room the other night and Friends was on Nick at Night. And I was like, God, Friends is on Nick at Night now. I feel so old. I mean, I still remember the good old 90s Nick at Night when they used to show like I Love Lucy and Bewitched and Happy Days and The Wonder Years. They showed all these classic shows on Nick at Night, and those are not there anymore.
Well, it's funny too when you go on Netflix and you see what they consider to be classic TV. You're like, wait, that's classic TV. That's just a few years ago. What are you talking about?
Stuff that was still taping on the
even like they consider the 90s to be classic now.
Yes.
So. And with everything going on this year and in this particular chapter, what would you actually call this chapter of your life if you had to give it a title?
Well, there's two responses that come to mind. I would say 2020, the year I no longer feared hell, or 2020, the year my entire world went on pause. The year of the pause button of life.
Seriously. What's been the most challenging thing so far this year?
Well, obviously, I'm still trying to find that romantic partner in life.
Yeah, you have to socially distance.
Being single during the pandemic definitely had its challenges. Mm-hmm. Some too graphic to explain, but you get my drift.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you can't be around people, how do you meet people?
Right.
That's the biggest thing. There's absolutely no meeting anybody at this point.
And you don't have anybody you can cuddle with at night in the scary world that we're in right now.
And even if you found somebody, you have to make sure that they've been tested and they're negative, and then they can.
Yes, I mean we already have enough of our own set of issues in our community when it comes to other diseases that we risk by hooking up, but now there's a whole other layer.
Yay. Oh, God.
And now it's more universal because this is not only affecting the LGBTQ community, this is also affecting straight people.
Everybody.
So it's kind of like, well, straight people, you now know what we were going through in the 80s.
That's right. Everybody's off limits. You can't have anything. And that's the end of the story. You just have to kind of like lock yourself away.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you learned about yourself during this whole time that you didn't know before?
I learned that no matter what, nothing is going to stop me from going after my dreams. Even if the world is on pause, I will wait it out.
That's all we could do is wait.
A lot of my actor friends left Los Angeles, and and I was like, nope, not me. I don't know when I'm going to get auditions, but if I do, I want to be here in Los Angeles and at the ready for them.
Have you met anybody, or do you know anybody who's been back to work yet? So to tell you what the sets are like now, how it's going to be different?
Well, I did a movie with Mimi Kennedy, who plays Marjorie on Mom. And we follow each other on social media, and she'll occasionally post some behind the scenes pictures of Mom. I mean, Anna Faris unfortunately left the cast because she didn't want to do it anymore. And but I mean, I'll see behind the scenes videos of Mimi with Allison Janney and Jamie Presley and Beth Hall, and everybody's wearing masks now. However, in front of the camera, Mom has not addressed the pandemic.
Right. I noticed that because I've been watching it, which is interesting. Because behind the scenes, they have been very open about the face shields and the masks. And when they're not working, they're not usually socializing much either. Not like they were.
I mean, and then the Connors, you see it completely differently, where the Connors is addressing the pandemic, and it's written into their stories, and everybody's socially distancing. So it's interesting to see which sitcoms decided to go for it and which sitcoms decided, let's just give our viewers some escapism, because we're already surrounded by the pandemic in our day-to-day lives. Why don't we just give our viewers a half hour where they can just forget that we're in the middle of this?
Yeah, I can see both ways, and I don't know which way. I think I wouldn't want every show to address it, because then I'd feel like we're just being beat over the head with it. And if I turn on the TV for news, I expect it, but if I'm watching something that I want to laugh about, I don't necessarily want to be beat over the head with what's going on in reality.
Right. And then American Housewife, same thing, didn't address the pandemic either. So it's just every show's doing it differently.
Yeah, and I was watching some of the Stand, the Stephen King, the new Stand that they have on it's on Peacock. No, not on Peacock.
CBS All Access.
Oh,
which
CBS.
I can't wait to watch because Whoopi's in it.
Yeah, so I only got to see one episode so far because they're showing it actually for free on the Sci-Fi channel on Pluto TV.
Oh.
But they only show the same episode. But I was watching and I was trying to figure out, I have to go back and watch the original one because I don't remember if the Stand was so close to what's going on now, or did they enhance it a little bit to make it
Well, I think they shot this before the pandemic.
So then the story itself was totally what's going on. I mean, not totally, because actually no, because they were throwing bodies in ditches. It was very similar to what was happening.
Because Whoopi was still doing The View when she was shooting The Stand, and she had the white hair on The View. So when she got rid of the white hair, that was when we knew that The Stand was done, or at least her part in it was done. So
it's very spooky.
It's kind of eerie that they did The Stand and they shot it right before this pandemic happened, and now.
Yeah, because I mean, basically the whole story was that a couple of people didn't get the disease, so they put them in facilities to study them, and they were trying to figure out why they didn't get it. But then the other people that were dying of it were basically dying in their houses. They weren't able to get to the hospital. There was too many people in the hospitals. They were too many bodies to bury, so they were dumping them in these ditches and then pretty much covering them up. People were desperate to get somewhere else because they didn't want to stay in the big cities they were in because everybody was gone or there was so much disease, so they were trying to escape. The added part was that spiritual part about it, where Mother Abigail was reaching out to them to come to Colorado to meet, which maybe that's why a lot of people move in Colorado. I don't know. I see a lot of people leaving the big cities and going to smaller towns in real life. Like you said, people left LA because they weren't getting work, but I also think a lot of people left because they're afraid to be in such overpopulated cities.
Yeah. But I love LA as much as I love my parents and as much as I love Pennsylvania. I couldn't imagine spending the pandemic anywhere else other than Los Angeles. I love my city. It's like if I'm gonna be in a pandemic, I'd rather be in a pandemic here than anywhere else.
Yeah, it's hard to go back to a small town too when you come from a big city, or when you've been in a big city for a while. It's weird.
Yeah.
So where can we find you online too before we forget that part? Because I want everybody to be able to find you.
Well, I'm on Facebook and IMDb, George Steeves, Steeves. And I'm on Twitter and Instagram at George F. Steeves, F as in fun. Uh, and if anybody wants to check out Magic 8 Ball, My Life with Asperger's, it's still on my Vimeo channel for the time being. Vimeo.com/magic8ball, the number 8 and then ball. And I'm not sure how much longer it's going to be up because I'm going to eventually take it down to make room for my upcoming documentary feature film, which I'm hoping will be out by this upcoming year. So I'm hoping to have that out by 2021.
Cool. And then the one you're working on now is a version of Magic 8 Ball, but it's going to be different.
Well, I wouldn't say it's a version. It's a whole new show.
Okay.
I have so many more stories to tell I'm going to talk about dating and relations and what that's like from the autistic perspective.
That was the adult version.
Yes. The last show was about coming out. This is going to be about being out.
Okay.
And the working title of the show is Kiss My Aspergers.
That's funny. No, that's good. I think that's a good one. And for people that don't really know a lot about Asperger's and being on the spectrum, what is the biggest misconception that you find when you meet people and they kind of want to talk to you about it?
Well, I definitely struggled when I was a child. I was a child of the 90s in rural Virginia before my family had moved to Pennsylvania, so I might as well have been an alien.
Yeah, really.
And luckily, I had a mother who was very hands-on. So I did go to a lot of therapists and a lot of different specialists and doctors. And I had a lot of social training that was really instilled into me. So I guess the misconception is that, yes, we can be socially awkward, but you can work on it and you can make it better. Like, yes, I used to struggle with eye contact, not anymore. Yes, I used to not like being touched or touching, but now I'm a big fat hugger. That's been the other tough thing during this pandemic, is not being able to hug people.
For everybody, actually. I don't think it's a healthy thing.
I miss hugs. And then obviously, I don't think that autism is something that can be cured. I got a little nervous seeing the I took a cross country road trip this summer to visit my parents in North Carolina.
Okay.
And one of the things I saw was a billboard in Texas that said, "We cure autism." And that made me a little nervous because I really hope that they're not taking these poor autistic children and treating it like conversion therapy, because it's obviously very abusive. So I don't think it's something that can be cured or fixed. I think it's something that can be worked on and you can make it better, but there's not an official cure or a fix for it. Like when it comes to my wheelhouse of topics, I mean, I've gotten better over the years. I can happily talk about politics and religion now with people, even though those are two things you're not supposed to talk about, but they're fascinating topics. I am very popular today. I am getting a lot of text messages, but they're all from political like things that I'm like, oh, I wish I could unsubscribe from all of them.
Oh, I know. Everybody wants money and.
Yes, and it's like I don't have money to give right now. I gotta
to be asking for money.
I gotta, keep that money to keep a roof over my head. My rent's not cheap. And but anyways, as I was saying before, my computer rudely interrupted me with the text messages. Feel free to edit any of this in post, by the way. Okay. Anything you need me to redo, don't hesitate to ask.
Oh, no.
And oh God, I lost my train of thought. But it's not something that can be cured or fixed. Like obviously before religion and politics, which are, like I said, two fascinating topics to me, even though you're not supposed to talk about them. All I could ever talk about when I was a kid was music, movies, and television. If you couldn't talk about any of those things with me, I had nothing to say to you.
Oh, so you
and that made it a little awkward at first to be around people. Like this girl I went to middle school with told this other person, "I hate George. All he ever talks about is TV."
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so I definitely went through my share of that growing up. But obviously, as an adult, what I try really hard to do now when I'm in conversations with people is I just listen mainly to what they're talking about, and then if I can chime in, I chime in. If I don't have anything, I don't need to chime in. I can just hold it.
Right. Well, that's important, but I think a lot of people have to learn that, because when you, especially if you're an only child, sometimes you have to learn those types of things because you don't know. Your parents pretty much let you have the run of things, and then you get into society and it's like, oh, I have to wait to be spoken to, or I shouldn't interrupt in conversations. So that's things that other people deal with too. It's not very different.
Yeah.
What is one thing that you absolutely cannot live without?
Oh, well, there's a lot of things I don't think I'd be able to live without. Movies, television, music. I don't think I could live without any of those three things. I experience those three things every single day in my life. I mean, thank God for streaming services. They were such a lifesaver during this pandemic. I've had so many shows that I have binged, so many shows I started that I need to finish. Never a dull moment thanks to streaming services. I just started season 2 of Golden Girls on Hulu, so I'm working my way through Golden Girls.
Oh, nice. That's good.
And I had never watched that show before from start to finish. So.
Oh, wow. I've been doing that. I've been doing a lot of Hot in Cleveland with Betty White too. So it's like.
And I just watched the Betty White documentary on Netflix, The First Lady of Television. So good.
Oh, yeah, I love her. She's great.
God, what a legacy.
Totally. And sadly today, Dawn Wells from Gilligan's Island passed away from COVID. So that was bad news today.
It's going to be really hard when the legends go.
It's hard. And it's funny because I kind of knew, I suspected she had COVID because they kept posting stuff saying that she was fine. Like with Betty White, they're saying, don't worry about how she's fine. But with Dawn Wells, it was they just kept overkilling with it. So I was like, I think they're covering it a little bit. And then today they said, okay, well, I think they knew it for a while. So what's one thing that you wish we could all live without?
Oh, well, I really wish we could all live without politics at this point. I mean, Joe Biden has his work cut out for him because I loved his pitch of sewing America back together and healing this nation. I love the pitch. However, that's going to be really, really hard to do.
Yeah, they're going to have to take a strong thread to sew that. That's for sure.
I mean, you saw the map on election night with the middle of the country. Talk about red. And 74 million people still voted for the guy who lost. So, I mean,
yeah, we're still divided.
I just don't know if we're ever going to heal as a nation after this. I mean, I hope we do, but I just don't know.
I think it's going to take more than 4 years, though. It'll be next cycle, maybe, or the middle of the next cycle, I think, because now we still have to get over COVID first. So there's so many hurdles to get past. And once those hurdles get past, then you can actually address the other issues that are on with all that. There's so much distraction right now.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting because now obviously you have the Republican side, which is now divided between the Trumplican side of the party and the moderate Republican party. But the John McCains of the world are dying. So sadly, it's becoming more and more of the Trump party and less of the Republican party. But then you have the Democratic Party, which is, you have like the Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi side of the party, which still takes corporate money. And but then you have the AOC Bernie wing of the party that's like, hey, let's get big money out of politics, and let's not have two parties that are both corporate parties. So
we have divisiveness in the parties themselves.
So it's like, unless a third party can rise up and rule, which other parties have tried, like the Green Party and the Libertarian Party, I just don't know if that's ever going to happen in any of our lifetimes, which is another party rising.
Yeah,
I mean, you have this People's Party movement that they're trying to make happen, the People's Party, but it's like, I'm rooting for them. I hope they can do it, but that's going to be an uphill battle.
But I think you might have more luck with just fixing the parties themselves and going back to being true Republicans and true Democrats. Because right now, the Democratic Party isn't really a Democratic Party anymore, and Republicans isn't really Republican anymore. So it's some kind of mishmash of horrible people like Mitch McConnell, and
Yeah.
then you have people that aren't so horrible, then you have people that are really good in that party, and then the Democrats, you have people that are horrible Democrats, you have middle of the road Democrats, you have really good Democrats. So somehow you have to kind of like wash that all out and then shake it up and see what happens.
And unfortunately, we can't get progressive movements like Medicare for All and Green New Deal because, unfortunately, when it comes to Democrats and Republicans, both parties are owned by oil companies, or both parties are owned by medical, pharmaceutical companies. So it's just, there's just too much big money tied up in everything right now, which is why we can't have that perfect utopian society that everybody wants. And so if we could live without one thing, I'd say that.
I think that's a good idea. Can you describe yourself in 3 hashtags?
Oh boy.
No, given 3, what 3 would you pick?
Oh boy, let's see. Hashtag unpredictable.
Okay.
Hashtag resourceful. Hashtag driven.
Oh, those are good ones. I think those are good ones.
Nothing stops me. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm for as long as I'm on this earth and as long as I'm in this body, I'm gonna keep going no matter what.
And is there anything else that you didn't get to do this year because of what's going on, like besides the show, that you had planned to do or you had on the back burner and you were going to bring forward this year?
That was mainly it. I was going to premiere my new one-man show this year. That didn't happen. And the documentary is still a work in progress, but that didn't come out this year. And then the movie I did, Saving Paradise, was originally planned to come out Christmas 2020. But unfortunately, because all of the bigger budgeted films that were planned for theatrical releases didn't get released, all had to fight to find a new home for streaming. So unfortunately, our cute little independent film that didn't have a lot of money kind of got put in the back burner.
But do you think that the Wonder Woman premiere on Christmas did so well? Do you think that'll be a good sign for the smaller movies now to be able to come forward?
I hope so. I mean, it's a really good movie and I'm really proud of it. And I really hope the world will eventually see it. And because we shot it over a year ago and it's ready to go. But it just depends. I mean, Hollywood really has to re-examine this year because I think this year Hollywood really learned, okay, movie theaters are not king anymore.
No. Then they haven't been for a while. I think for a while it's been on decline, but this was like the big slap in the face to say,
I mean,
oh gosh.
AMC might have to go bankrupt in 2021. So, I mean, I think Hollywood is finally realizing, okay, unless this pandemic turns around real quickly with the vaccinations, you know, movie theaters and movie are not going to be king anymore.
I had hoped that maybe drive-ins would become big again because I was never able to go to drive-ins. I guess they were gone before I was old enough to be going to movies and stuff, probably for a while. But I like that idea of being in your own car. It's safer, I guess, right? And
drive-ins did become big here in Los Angeles.
I saw that, but I don't think we have enough room to have so many either now, because now we've built everything up so much that there's no place to put a drive-in, except in one spot maybe, which is not going to be right. It's not going to be enough.
We've been very lucky here in Los Angeles. We still have a lot of spread out space when you get to like the Valley area.
Yeah, I think you can do it out there.
Or when you go like on the outskirts of Los Angeles, we still have a lot of spread out areas. So we've been very lucky. I've actually seen a couple of movies at the drive-in theater, especially around Halloween season. They showed the original 1978 Halloween. They showed Halloween 4 and 5. They couldn't get any of the other Halloween movies because those are all owned by major studios. And 1, 4, and 5 are all independently owned.
Oh, wow.
So it's easier to get those, but the problem with 2 and 3 is that Universal owns them and they own the recent one. And then Dimension and Miramax own the 6 and H2O and Resurrection and the Rob Zombie one. So all the rights are just tied up all over the place. So
yeah, they're gonna have to figure that out. But I think it would be smart for them to try in the States, especially states that are warm all year round, where they can do rooftops maybe, and they can do drive-ins and have something for people to do, because it's a shame not to be able to see it on the big screen when it's meant to be seen on the big screen. And you miss a lot in translation too.
And Warner Brothers still forged ahead with Tenet and Wonder Woman. Now they didn't. Now Christopher Nolan refused to, wait to have it released till next year, and he didn't want to put it on a streaming service. So Tenet still pushed through and was released theatrically wherever anybody could watch it. I mean, in Los Angeles County, they banned, movie theaters from opening back up again. So if you wanted to watch a movie in Southern California, you'd have to drive down to Orange County or San Diego.
Ooh.
And I personally didn't feel safe going into a movie theater. So
no, I'm not ready for that yet. I'm not even ready for the gym yet.
Yeah, there's some things where it's like, sadly, until there's a vaccination, movie theaters, regular theater like Broadway or off Broadway, that stuff's going to be off limits till there's a vaccination. Gyms.
Yeah. So I mean, gyms are open, but I'm not ready. So I've been working out in the house. I worked out in the house all since March anyway. So I figured I'm not going to change that yet. I'm not ready yet, but hopefully, once the vaccines come, we'll see.
And Los Angeles has had a bunch of outdoor gyms.
Oh, that's cool. I think
so if you still want to work out, a lot of gyms have moved everything outdoors, so they have like outdoor gyms now.
That's more. I think that's also good motivation, because being outside is better motivation.
I'm not sure where the outdoor gyms are now, because now that our cases are rising up again in Southern California, a lot of stuff has been shut back down again.
Well, once the hospital's got to 100.
Even the outdoor dining has been shut down again. Everything else has been. So, I mean, unfortunately, this is going to be like a seesaw for a while. I mean,
it's getting weirder and weirder as we go on. But on a good note, is there anything you want to leave everybody with?
I had a great time with you today. I wanted to make sure you got everything you wanted to say.
Oh yeah, definitely, absolutely. I just want to remind people that you have some things coming up next year, and your one-man show should be out again. And you're going to do that. You're going to try to do it live still?
For Magic 8 Ball, My Life with Asperger's, I'm not sure if I'm going to continue to do it live or not, just because I've been doing it for 3 years, and I'm kind of bored with it.
Right.
But I definitely plan to premiere Kiss My Asperger's in 2021. And hopefully the documentary, which features Magic 8 Ball, My Life with Asperger's, and it's called My Life with Asperger's, hopefully that will be out sometime in 2021. And same thing with Saving Paradise. So right now, everything is just kind of on hold.
Oh, that's cool. But at least Saving Paradise is done.
Yeah, so Saving Paradise is done. The documentary is so close to being done. And I have a new song that I recorded for the documentary feature film that I'm hoping to release as a single, and it'll be the official theme song for the movie. It's called Back to You.
Oh, it's 2021.
Well, it's just a song about how you run away, but then you go back. So.
Okay. Well, 2020 is going to be a busy year for you. I don't want anybody. I'm trying to not say that 2021 is going to be my year or your year or anybody's year, because people did it in 2020 and look what happened.
I was certain that after getting a movie, which I was the third lead in, and after getting a guest starring role on NCIS Los Angeles, by the way, if any of your listeners want to check it out, it's season 11. It's called Human Resources. Feel free to check it out. I was certain that 2020 was going to be my year. So after this year, I'm never saying that stuff ever again.
As a matter of fact, last year at this exact time, people were saying that. So yeah.
I'm not saying that this year. I'm just going to hope that 2021 is better. Nowhere to go but up from here. But I'm not ever saying this is going to be my year ever again.
I'm going to say it's going to be the best year that it can be.
Yes, that's a great way to put it.
I'm not leaving anything on my shoulders. It's going to be the best that it can be. We'll figure it out. Just like we figured out this. If we can make it through this, we can
make it through anything.
Yeah, we can do. I think we can make this work, but we have to just.
And this year really taught me more than anything to truly count your blessings. I mean, yes, I was upset that I couldn't go back to work as an actor and be on a set again, but then I had to remind myself, hey, I still get residuals from NCIS Los Angeles. Not every actor in Hollywood can say that right now. I worked 2 jobs last year. Not every actor in Los Angeles can say that right now. I'm blessed that everybody in my immediate family is still alive and healthy. And I'm blessed that I didn't get COVID myself, knock on wood. So this year really taught me count the blessings because not everybody can say that.
That's true. And it's a perspective thing. So we just have to go in perspective of the year coming up too. Not if you don't expect such high things and you kind of be realistic about it, then we won't be disappointed by it. So that'll be, not that I'm saying you should ever lower your expectations, but just that there's going to be limits going forward for at least the first half of the year. So I think we have to figure that out.
And look around and go, not everybody can say they're in my position. So
yeah, absolutely. And still, but also still a good point that we made pretty much through the whole thing is that you never stop dreaming, no matter what's going on around you, and you never stop working towards it. Even if you can't do everything to get towards it, you do what you can to get towards that goal. And then when things open up again and roads open again and you're able to do that, you just go for it. So prepare. You have to be prepared.
absolutely. I mean, when I get back actually to Los Angeles on New Year's Day, I'm going to be doing some voiceover narration work for my upcoming documentary feature film. So yeah, the boat is going to keep on moving no matter what.
Cool. But I want to thank you for being here.
Oh,
And
thank you for having me.
definitely come back when there's things going on and we can talk about those things too. And that'll be really cool. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.